Hey folks, welcome to another Passion for Sound audio review. Today I'm reviewing what kind of feels like an old friend because I've owned the sibling of this headphone for a number of years now, and for a long time it was my favorite headphone of all that I'd ever tried. And that's the original AudioQuest Nighthawk. So what I'm reviewing today is the closed version of the Nighthawk, the AudioQuest NightOwl. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, you might notice that I'm surrounded by a lot more gear than I normally would be, and that's because for me, the best way to talk about the NightOwls is to compare them with a number of other headphones. So today I'm going to compare the NightOwls with the original Nighthawks, with the Focal Clears, the Massdrop Foztex TXO, and the Mezza Audio 99 Neo. This is quite a range there, and I'm doing that to give you a good sense of where it sits, and hopefully you'll have heard at least one of those headphones to give you an idea of just how the NightOwl sounds. Let's talk a bit about the design, the packaging, the accessories that the NightOwls come with. So first of all, just like the Nighthawks, they come in this beautiful leather carry case. You can see here that they're really well protected on the inside. There's also a bag for the headphones. There's a cleaning cloth as well for both the silver plugs have a cleaning cloth and the headphones themselves. So they're really well accessorized, and it's a really fantastic case that provides plenty of protection. It's not exactly compact and small, but they're also not a headphone that I'm expecting people to be carrying around for daily use on a train or a bus. They're not that kind of headphone. In terms of accessories, the NightOwls come with 2 sets of ear pads, one of which is installed when you first get them, and 1 cable option. Let's start with the cable. So the cable that's provided is quite a departure for AudioQuest in that it's a short cable designed specifically for mobile phones. It's got a microphone built in and a button for answering and hanging up on calls, and it's very, very short, designed to just reach from the headphones down into your pocket. Now, personally, I don't mind that, but it's not a headphone that you're likely to use on a train or a bus or out and about, so I really don't know why they focused this on mobile usage. I guess if you're at home and you want to put them on playing from your phone or in the office and you want to be able to answer a call, that might be helpful, but I personally prefer a full-length desktop-style cable for a headphone like the NightOwls. So that brings me to the fact that you can buy from AudioQuest directly their own cable with either an XLR plug on the end, or you can get it, I believe, with just a 3.5mm standard headphone jack. That gives you a longer cable. I believe it may also be a slightly higher quality cable, but I didn't hear a great deal of difference between the two. But for me, it was more convenient from a desktop listening point of view, and of course gave me the ability to listen in balanced. Now, I already had that cable from my AudioQuest Nighthawks, so I just switched it over because the plugs are interchangeable and kept on listening very happily. Before we carry on with the review, if you're finding this useful, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the like button, and let me know down in the comments if there's anything you'd like to see reviewed in the future. The other thing that is included in the packaging with the NightOwls is a second set of pads. So the fitted pads that come with the NightOwls are a leather style pad, and then they package in the velour style pads because it does actually change the sound signature of the headphone quite significantly, and I'll talk about that in a little while. So it's nice to get the choice of pads. You can tweak it, you can play around and see what you like best, and you've also got a spare if anything was to ever happen. You're not stuck without a set of pads. So that covers off all the accessory side of things. Let's take a look now at the actual design and build of the NightOwls. Now, they're extremely similar to the Nighthawks, and I'll put an image up on screen so you can see them side by side. My Nighthawks are the original version of the Nighthawks, which had the liquid wood finish. But other than that, these headphones are almost identical in terms of the look and the general design principles outside of the sound and the fact that one is closed and one is open. So the things that are very similar here is you've got a suspension style headband. I'll talk about this in a moment. You've got the ear cups themselves are suspended on this really interesting 4-way rubber suspension, and that allows for a very movable ear cup which sits comfortably on the head at any angle that it needs to, but feels very secure. It's not flimsy, it doesn't flop around everywhere. It's really nicely designed. Other than that, you've got the input for your headphone cables on the bottom of the ear cups, and because you've got distinct left and right entry, you can run these balanced, as I've already mentioned. So let's come back around to the headband. This is probably my one and only gripe with both the Nighthawks and the NightOwls. AudioQuest chose to use a suspension style headband, and what I mean by that is it's got elastic inside the band here that allows the leather pad to move a little bit to adjust for your head size. That's great when it's brand new, but as time goes by, and I think I've owned my Nighthawks for about 2 to 3 years now, and they've been a daily driver for a lot of that time, what ends up happening is that you end up with a headband that has no elasticity at all now. So that just moves freely. It's got nothing pulling it back. And on top of that, what I've found is that the leather on the NightHawks has started to fray at the edges of that band as well. The way it's designed has led to any abrasion obviously wearing away the outer surface of the leather. So for me, that's not great. I'm hoping that maybe the NightOwls have been designed with a slightly different leather. They do look slightly different, so hopefully it's harder wearing, but I am still concerned that that elastic will wear out over time. Now, I'm sure that you can buy spare parts from AudioQuest. I'm not sure the price of those, and I do think it's a shame that in 2 to 3 years of hard use, you will probably be looking at replacing that headband, which is a slight hassle. The good news is it's very easy to do. It's a very simple process. When you look at the headphones, you can actually see there's a little toggle, and you can just sort of bend the leather off the toggle and then put the new one on there. So very, very easy to do. Despite my concerns about the headband, I have to say, while the headband is intact and has the elasticity still, the NightOwls are an extremely comfortable headphone. They're a headphone I can wear for hours at a time with no fatigue and no concern. They're nice and light, and once they're on the head, they distribute the minimal pressure from the weight of the headphones across the entire head. So from that point of view, I like the design, but just with the understanding that it's a potentially limited lifespan design. Something that's quite different in the design, and it's a minor point, is that with the Carbon series of the NightOwls, and I believe the NightHawks as well, AudioQuest went from having the left-right channel embossed into the actual cup itself to moving it inside the pads. So when you look at the pad, you'll actually see that each of the pads has its own left and right printing. That's good in terms of working out which pad goes where, but I do find when I pick up the headphones, I'd prefer not to have to kind of twist them open and see inside as to which is left and right. I really like with the NightHawks being able to pick them up, look at the bottom of the headphone, which is easy when you're picking them up off a stand, and then put them on your head based on the left and right embossing. It's a little thing once again, but it's something that I have noticed I prefer the original design. So let's talk now about the general design of the NightOwls. I've talked a lot about how they compare to the NightHawks, but for those of you that aren't familiar with the NightHawks, let me break down what that actually means in terms of the similarities and differences. When AudioQuest were looking to build the original NightHawk and NightOwl range, they were looking to start from the ground up and create the best possible headphone that they could. At the time, there was a man by the name of Skylar Gray working for AudioQuest, and his brief was basically, with cost being no object, make the best headphone you possibly can. Some of the things that came out of that is a focus on having a driver that moves in a purely pistonic nature. And what that means is that it has perfect motion, or as close to perfect as possible, without the actual diaphragm flexing or breaking up. And that means there's very, very clean and distortion-free sound that should allow the headphones to be as transparent as possible. Now, I'll talk about this in the sound section in a bit more detail, but it absolutely works. The sound from the NightHawks and the NightOwls is some of the cleanest and distortion-free sound you'll ever hear from headphones, in my opinion. That's not to say they're better than other headphones on the market necessarily, but they are absolutely amazing in the way that they handle the very, very, very low distortion. Another thing that was done with the NightHawks and NightOwls was the design of the cup itself. So it was designed so that the driver is slightly angled, which we know from headphones like the HD800s, creates a better soundstage and a better sense of spacing and placement within the audio experience. But they also designed it out of this compound called liquid wood, which essentially is a wood pulp that is then mixed with a resin to form the cup within a mold. The benefit of liquid wood is that it resists resonance that you don't necessarily want in a headphone, and allows the driver to do its thing without significant coloration from the housing itself. Further to that, they built some special venting systems into the closed version, the NightOwl, to help the sound be as open as possible while still giving you the benefits of a closed headphone, namely keeping sound from the outside world out and preventing sound from your earphones and your listening experience from leaking to others around you. All in all, the NightOwls represent a very focused approach to audio engineering to produce the best possible headphone that AudioQuest could. For a headphone that retails at around about $400 at the moment, the NightOwls offer you plenty to get interested in. They're a very focused piece of audio engineering from Skylar Gray and the team at AudioQuest. They are very comfortable, they look good I think, they're nice and light. As I said before, the only gripe I've got is this headband. So they've got a lot going for them, but it's obviously important that they sound good according to your tastes. The original NightHawks met with a very polarized response when they were released. People like me loved them, but plenty of other people really didn't. They had quite a strong mid-bass boost that caused a bit of a boxy sound. It was something I found I adapted to over time, but some people found that hard to get past and never really enjoyed the headphones. The result from AudioQuest was that when they came to do the second generation of the NightHawk and to add in the NightOwl, they revisited the tuning and just tweaked it a little bit to take away some of that mid-bass boost. So the end result is a headphone that is much more neutral, but hasn't completely departed from the soul and the warmth that made, for me at least, the NightHawks so special to begin with. So when you get a pair of NightOwls or NightHawks in the second generation, the Carbon style, what you can expect is a fairly transparent and neutral sound that's just been tweaked a little bit towards warm. It's got a little bit of extra bass emphasis probably, and the mid-range is quite nicely focused. It's not thick and creamy, it's not heavy, it's not bloated, but it's got a definite sense of soul to it, which is what I've always really liked about them. Now, as I said at the very beginning of this video, for me, the easiest way to describe these is actually by comparison with a number of other headphones. And that's because I find the transparency of the NightOwls to be a little bit hard to kind of nail down. I wouldn't describe them as overly warm, but I think that's more because they're very transparent. They haven't got that distortion. So they sound clean, they sound crisp, but if you were to actually put them up against another headphone that is clean and crisp, you start to realize these have got extra warmth in them. So let me explain their sound by talking to you a little bit about some other headphones and how they stack up. And I've got a bit of a range to put these in perspective of where they sit in the larger picture of headphone audio. Let's start with the 99 Neos from Metzer Audio. I really like the 99 Neos. They retail for around $200, so they're about half the price of where the NightOwls are currently sitting, and a slightly more compact design. They come with a slightly more compact case, but they're not as well made of a headphone. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but they're on different levels. One of the big distinctions between these headphones is the way they create the sound. So in the case of the Neos, they use a Mylar driver, which is a plasticized driver, and it's set up in such a way that the driver itself has to flex, as opposed to the pistonic style driver that's in the NightOwls, as I mentioned before. So the end result of this is that you're getting a much cleaner sound with the NightOwls, whereas there's a little bit of harshness that you can hear in comparison when you listen to the two. So just the treble out of the NightOwls is much cleaner, much more precise than what you get from the 99 Neos, despite both being great headphones. Another area that's really different is in the tuning of the bass. The 99 Neos have much more bass than the NightOwls. It's also much looser bass. So these sound a bit boomy compared to the NightOwls. They sound a little bit bloated, a little bit slow. It's enjoyable. It's fun to listen to. They've got a really good sense of groove to them, but they don't have the elegance and the precision that the NightOwls have when you put them side by side. Next up, I've got the Fostex Mass Drop, or Drop as it's now known, collaboration on the TX Zeros. This is the first generation, not the second generation, but very similar headphones overall. The tuning has changed a little bit for the second generation, I believe, but essentially by using the similar driver and the same housing, which is the Fostex standard from the TR50Ps, what you're going to get is a similar quality of sound overall with tuning adjustments to suit different tastes. The Fostex Drop collaboration retails again at around that $150 to $200 mark, so you're looking again at a headphone about half the price of the NightOwls. Both are closed, but this is a traditional dynamic driver up against a planar magnetic driver, and a relatively efficient one, but not super efficient. Listening to the two side by side, what I found was that the TXO felt a lot more veiled, a lot more held back. The sound wasn't as clean and as crisp from the TXO as it was from the NightOwl. You could absolutely hear the levels of quality difference. To me, the TXO sit in this comparison at the bottom of the rung. They're a nice headphone. They're great if you're into modding headphones, but they don't compare to something like the NightOwl, and for me don't even quite stack up against something like the Neo. The bass extension was better on the NightOwls, the clarity was better on the NightOwls. Probably the only area that the TXOs went a little bit further than the NightOwls was they had a slightly wider soundstage, but within that soundstage, sounds were not as clearly focused as they are from something like the NightOwl. So for me, again, it's an easy win for the NightOwls. Let's talk now about the original NightHawks. So I've already mentioned how much I love these headphones. If you've watched my review of the Focal Clears, you'll know that the Clears were the first headphone in a long time to dethrone these as my daily driver. I love them, I'd adjusted to that slightly unusual tuning, and I just enjoyed every single time I listened to them. I was a little bit concerned actually that when I got the NightOwls, I maybe wasn't going to enjoy them given how much I liked the Hawks. And I'd heard that they'd changed the tuning and I was concerned about that. The good news is I absolutely prefer the sound out of the NightOwls. Everything that AudioQuest has done has improved on the original NightOwl. Specifically what they've done is they've kept a quality of the mid-range which I don't think I've heard in many other headphones. It's clean, it's crisp, it allows the textures of the mid-range to really come through, but it never pushes it in your face. And I really enjoy that. So if you're listening to something with, say, guitars, you can hear the textures of the strings and the strums in a way that a lot of other headphones don't do. And I've always put that down to the fact that the NightOwls and the NightHawks have such low distortion that there's nothing masking any of those really subtle cues in the audio. So I thoroughly enjoy the sound of the NightOwls. I definitely prefer them over the NightHawks, the original NightHawks. And I'm actually really keen to try out the NightOwl Carbon to see if we can get the same benefits of the more open design with the sound quality and the tuning of the NightOwls themselves. Probably for me the most interesting comparison for this review was stacking the NightOwls up against the much more expensive Focal Clear. So the Focal Clear, if you've watched my review, is currently my all-time favorite headphone. It managed to displace the NightHawks, as I just mentioned, and it's been my daily driver ever since I bought it. The NightOwls have come really close to knocking the Clears off that list. And to be honest, I think if they were an open headphone, they might just get the win. I wouldn't sell the Clears because for me, they're still the better analytical headphone if I really want to understand what's going on in the music. But from an enjoyment point of view, I would reach for the NightOwls every time if they were open. I generally prefer wearing an open headphone. I like the more spacious presentation of an open headphone, and I like being able to hear what's going on. I don't need to worry in my home office about having sound leakage, and so for that reason I would always choose an open headphone, and that's what's kept the Clears as my daily driver, but the Owls are a very, very close second. So what I'm now comparing is a $1,500 headphone against what's currently selling as a $400 headphone. Now when these were released, they were up closer to the $1,000 mark, they're around $700 to $800, but that's still nearly half the price of the Clears. So for them to perform so close is pretty impressive in my book. To give you an idea of the differences, the Clears are less warm, they've got a bit less bass than the NightOwls. They've also got, as you'd expect from the open design, a much more spacious sound. On the flip side of that though, the NightOwls, because of their closed design, have a more intimate presentation, and that results in a more focused soundstage. Both are excellent with their imaging, but I feel like the Owls provide that really razor sharp pinpoint imaging that is a combination of them being closed and therefore a slightly more intimate presentation, but I believe also because their design is so good at minimizing distortion. There's no doubt in my mind that the Owls are a slightly more colored headphone, but definitely they are enhanced. They've got a bit of extra bass, they're a warmer sound. But having said that, they do it in such a way that you don't put them on and suddenly think, wow, this has been tampered with. They're clean and they're transparent, but with this beautiful coloration that just eases into the music so that you don't ever really notice it. To me, they're one of the best headphones I've ever come across for enjoyment listening. They're accurate and they're detailed, but first and foremost, they're headphones that you can just enjoy the sound from. The Clears, as I mentioned in my review of them, really straddle the line between analytics and enjoyment. I wouldn't describe them as analytical, but they're also not a super enjoyable headphone. They're not a headphone I get lost in and want to bob my head to. Whereas the NightOwls I can absolutely do that with. From that point of view, it really depends on your tastes. If you're looking for something that's a bit more on the enjoyable side, something like the NightOwls or indeed the second generation NightHawks, the Carbons, might be a great option for you, especially at the price they're currently sitting at around that $400 mark. Now, one final thing I'd like to mention is the ability to tweak the sound with the pads, as I mentioned before. So the headphones come, as I mentioned at the beginning, fitted with the leather style pads, and that gives them a little bit of extra bass. So if what I've just described, that extra warmth in the sound, isn't to your liking, the good news is you can change them over to the velour pads and all of a sudden you're getting a much more neutral sounding headphone. It's quite significant. I'm not going to suggest they suddenly become analytical. They probably sit still a hair warmer than something like the Clears, but they become noticeably less bassy and therefore have a slightly more open presentation. I still prefer the sound with the leather pads, but anyone that's familiar with my channel will know that I prefer my music a little bit warm and I like to have good bass. To give you an idea of where my preferences lie, I'd probably choose the base of the NightOwls with the leather pads over the further enhanced 99 Neos, but I would also choose it over the closer to neutral presentation from the Clears. So that gives you an idea of where I sit on that continuum. For me, the velour pads sound great. They retain all of the beautiful transparency and clarity that the low distortion gives you, but they just pull some of that bass back as well to take it a step closer to a truly neutral headphone. So with all that in mind, let's summarize. The NightOwls are originally an $800 headphone that's currently available for about $400 from Amazon. To my mind, they represent the same level of quality and engineering that you'll find in $1,500 headphones like the Clears. And if the tuning is to your liking, if what I've described sounds interesting to you, I don't think you can go wrong. At that price, even if an extra headband down the track costs you $50 or so, you're coming out way ahead in terms of the money you're saving for the performance that you're getting. These are hands down one of the best performing and the best sounding headphones I've ever listened to. The low distortion is just magical to hear from a good system like the THX 789 amplifier that I reviewed, or a really nice clean tube amplifier even. They just perform so well. If you're in the market, absolutely have a look at them. I'll put a link down below if you're thinking about buying them. You can duck over to Amazon and through that link. You can help support the channel and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe and like the video if you found it useful and helpful. And we look forward to seeing you next time here on Passion for Sound.